Hey students, today's lesson is on adding rational numbers. So let's go ahead and take a look at this key idea. I'll try to stay out of the way here. To add rational numbers, we're going to use the same rules for signs as we used when we did integers. So, for example, when we add a positive rational number plus a positive rational number, we'll get a positive sum. When we add a negative rational number plus a negative rational number, we'll get a negative sum. And when we have a positive and a negative rational number added together, we're going to have to subtract the absolute values and use the sign of the rational number with the larger absolute value. Hopefully that sounds really familiar because that's the same thing we did when it was integers. It's just going to be a little bit more complicated now because we're sometimes going to be adding fractions or decimals, and we can do that. We're just going to apply those same rules that we did with integers. So let's look at this first example for adding rational numbers. Negative 8/3 plus 5/6. So in this case, we have a negative fraction and a positive fraction. So we're going to need to subtract their absolute values and then use the sign of the larger absolute value. So it's probably going to help if we go ahead and change this to a common denominator first. So let's go ahead and change this to negative 16/6 plus 5/6. Now I can go ahead and subtract the absolute values. The absolute value of negative 16/6 is 16/6, and the absolute value of 5/6 is 5/6. So the difference here is 11/6. But in this case, the negative rational number is the one with the larger absolute value. So my end result is negative 11/6. Or I could change that to negative 1 and 5/6. Here we have a decimal example. Again, we have a negative rational number and a positive rational number. So we're going to subtract their absolute values, larger absolute value minus smaller absolute value. And then we see that our positive rational number is the larger absolute value, so our end result will be positive. So off to the side here, I'm going to do 7.62 minus 4.05. Can't do 2 minus 5, so I'll borrow. 12 minus 5 is 7. 5 minus 0 is 5. 7 minus 4 is 3. The larger absolute value is positive, so it's positive 3.57. Okay? Now we're going to do an example where we're evaluating an expression. So we have this expression 2x plus y, but we know that instead of x, we're going to use 1/4, and in place of y, we're going to use negative 3/2. So let's rewrite the expression with our given values for the variables. 2 times 1/4 plus negative 3/2. All right, so order of operations tells us we multiply first. 2 times 1/4 is 2/4, or 1/2. 1/2 plus negative 3/2. Okay, now we've got it down to a positive rational number and a negative rational number. So I'm going to take the difference between them. 3/2 minus 1/2 is 2/2, or 1, but the larger absolute value here is the negative rational number. So that means our sum is going to be to the left of the number line into the negatives, negative 1. All right, one last example here. Here we have this table that shows the annual profits in billions of dollars of a financial company from 2008 to 2012. So any positive number represents a gain to the business, And any negative number will represent a loss. So companies sometimes take losses certain years, but they can do that because they make gains in others. But we want to know if they lost certain amounts in 2008 and 2009, but then they gained in 2010, 11, and 12. Overall, did they gain or did they lose, and by how much? So let's go ahead and add all of these up. Negative 1.7 plus negative 4.75 plus 1.7 plus 0.85 plus 3.6. All right, now we know that addition is commutative. We can do this in any order. So as I was writing those, I noticed these two integers are opposites. So negative 1.7 and 1.7 are opposites. So I'm going to add those first. They add up to 0. So I can really just drop that out. Negative 4.75 plus 0.85 plus 3.6. All right, so again, I could go in any order I want. I think I'd like to add the positives first. So I'm going to leave my negative 4.75, and then I'm going to combine the 3.6 and 0.85. And if I need to, I can do a little work off to the side. 3.6 plus 0.85. 5, 6 plus 8 is 14. So 4.45. So negative 4.75 plus positive 4.45. Now I have a negative rational number and a positive rational number, so I want to take the difference between them. I can do this one in my head. 4.75 minus 4.45 is 0.3. And the larger absolute value is negative, so it's negative 0.3. So in terms of this business, that means over the 5-year period, they lost $0.3 billion. That's quite a bit of money. But hopefully they have some gains in the next few years. All right, so try a few on your own, and I'll see you soon.